All right, let's talk about Jupiter. You know, it's a planet that really lives a double life. On the one hand, to modern science, it's this absolute behemoth, a giant of our solar system. But on the other hand, for ancient traditions, it was something else entirely. It was a teacher, a god, even a timekeeper. So how do these two worlds, the scientific and the sacred, actually connect? Let's dive in.
So, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of Jupiter, just look at this number. We're talking more than 300 times the mass of our own planet Earth. It's so big, you could literally take every other planet in our solar system, toss them inside Jupiter, and still have room to spare. It's a giant in every sense of the word. Just wow.
But, its size isn't even the most mind-blowing thing about it. Get this. The great astronomer Carl Sagan famously called Jupiter a failed star. And why? Well, because it's made of the exact same stuff as our sun, hydrogen and helium. It just never got quite big enough, never packed on enough mass to kickstart nuclear fusion and light up. I mean, just think about that for a second. Our solar system was this close to having two suns.
Okay, so let's dig into that side of the story first. This absolute astronomical wonder. I mean, what does it really mean to have a failed star right here in our cosmic backyard? As you're about to see, the way this planet behaves, it's like nothing else out there.
The energy this thing puts out is just incredible. For starters, it's spinning so incredibly fast that a day on Jupiter is less than 10 hours long. But here's the kicker. It generates its own heat. It's actually radiating about twice as much energy as it gets from the sun. It has its own internal engine, you know? It really does behave like a tiny little star.
And our understanding of Jupiter has just exploded in these incredible leaps and bounds. Back in the 70s, we confirmed that internal heat source and even discovered it had faint rings. But the real game changer? That was in 1995. The Galileo probe actually plunged right into Jupiter's atmosphere. It gave us our very first direct taste of what a gas giant is made of. It's like every mission peels back another layer of this absolutely beautiful mystery.
Okay, so now let's switch gears and bridge that gap between science and myth. Because long before we were sending probes into deep space, ancient cultures were doing the exact same thing we do. They were looking up at that brilliant point of light in the night sky. And what they saw? Well, it was something totally different. They saw a divine presence.
So in the West, most of us know him as Jupiter, right? The Roman king of the gods, big, powerful, in charge. But here's where it gets really interesting. In the Vedic tradition of India, he's known as Brihaspati, or simply Guru. And he isn't a king. He's something maybe even more profound. He's the great teacher, the preceptor of the gods themselves. He's the one who grants wisdom, and that supreme intelligence they call D.
Now, to really get this, there's a key concept we've got to unpack. It's called a karaka, which basically means a signifier. In this whole system, each planet represents or signifies different parts of our life. And Jupiter, in its role as guru, is seen as the most positive, the most beneficial of all of them, a true bringer of good things.
So what does Jupiter signify exactly? Well, first and foremost, as guru, it's all about higher knowledge. And we're not just talking about school or textbooks here. This is spiritual wisdom, philosophy, the deep stuff found in sacred texts. It represents that guide, that teacher, that mentor figure we all look for in our lives.
But the guru's job doesn't stop with just knowledge. Jupiter is also the karaka for wealth, for abundance, for expansion. We're talking prosperity, success, progress, all of it. You can almost think of it as the force of optimistic growth, that energy that just brings good fortune your way and opens up new doors.
And that leads us to maybe its most spiritual role of all. Jupiter is the significator of divine grace. It's optimism, positivity, justice, and something the old texts call providential help. You know that feeling? That sense that the universe has your back right when you need it most? That's Jupiter. It's the planet of doing the right thing, of honor and generosity.
Okay, and this is where it gets, for me, incredibly fascinating. Because in the Hindu tradition, Jupiter isn't just a symbol for all these great things. Its actual physical movement through the heavens is used as a kind of cosmic clock, a way to measure time that's totally unique and cyclical.
This whole system is built around something called the Samvatsara. And all that is really is a Jovian year. It's the time it takes Jupiter to travel through one sign of the zodiac. But, and this is key, Jupiter isn't dancing alone up there. This cosmic clock is actually a duet between Jupiter and our other gas giant, Saturn.
So how does this clock actually work? Well, it all comes down to the orbits of Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter takes roughly 12 years to orbit the Sun. Saturn takes about 30. Now, if you remember your math class, the least common multiple of 12 and 30 is 60. And what that means is, every 60 years, these two giant planets return to almost the exact same spot in the sky, completing one full cycle. And every single year within that 60-year cycle gets its own unique name and personality.
And here's a quick look at that cycle in action. So the year that kicks off in the spring of 2025 is named Vishwavasu. The one right after that, starting in 2026, is called Parabhava. And like I said, each of these names isn't just a label, it carries a very specific meaning, a kind of spiritual lesson for all of us.
And that brings us to our final and maybe the most profound point. What can we actually learn from a cosmic clock where the years themselves have names and meanings? Let's take a closer look at that upcoming year, Parabhava, and see what it's trying to teach us. So, what in the world does the name for the coming year, Parabhava, actually mean? Well, if you translate it literally from Sanskrit, you get words like defeat, humbling, or even destruction. Yeah, on the surface, that sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? But the spiritual take on it is something else entirely.
And this is where that deeper spiritual wisdom just shines through. See, the defeat it's talking about isn't about losing your job or your money, it's the defeat of the ego. Parabhava is a year that's meant to teach humility, surrender, and faith. The whole idea is that when our own pride finally hits a wall, it creates this opening for grace to come in. So what feels like a loss is actually the path to liberation.
In this entire philosophy, it's really at the heart of the Hindu New Year festival, which is called Ugadi. The core lesson of that day is all about accepting life's dualities. It's this beautiful reminder that every year is going to have a mix of everything, right? Joy and sorrow, success and failure. And the goal is just to meet all of it with a sense of balance and grace.
And there's this beautiful, tangible symbol for this in a special dish they make called Ugadi Pachadi. It's a kind of chutney made with 6 very distinct tastes, and each taste represents a different part of life. So you've got the bitterness of neem to represent challenges, the sweetness of jaggery for happiness, the tang of mango for surprises, and so on. When you taste this blend, you're symbolically accepting everything the coming year has in store, the bitter and the sweet, the defeat and the victory.
So when you put it all together, the story of Jupiter, this journey from a failed star to a divine teacher, it really challenges us to look beyond the surface of things. It asks us to think about a totally different way of seeing time. So how does our perspective change when we see time not just as a straight line, but as a cosmic repeating rhythm, a meaningful cycle with lessons built right into it, if we just take a moment to look up?